Well, thank you so much, Karen. A big welcome to everyone who's joining us today. Hope you get tons of value from our conversation. And I'd like to welcome two women who I absolutely adore and respect because respect is just as important as adulation. Mita Mistry, if you could just wave at us, please.
Hi,
Um,
everybody.
and Priya Mulji.
Hi,
And
everyone.
so both Mita and Priya, they live across the pond. So hello again. And I've been a big fan of their words, their writing. And I say this, and we'll get a little bit more into, I guess, what is it that they do, and I'll have them explain that a little bit, but bring it back to the writing aspect and why wellness matters so much. So Mita is many things and a writer and a therapist and a columnist. And Priya is also many things and a columnist, and she works in event marketing. And if I've missed out on anything, please touch on that, ladies. And what I've noticed in both their work is wellness is very core. And how do I say this? As a reader, I find their writing very rooted. There's a lot of centeredness. So, and I was saying this to our session host Karen earlier. To me, Priya is the Carrie Bradshaw of the South Asian community in England, because that's, she writes a lot about relationships and columns. But even when she's expressing frustration or a heartbreak or any of the emotions, there is rootedness in that. It's not like F you and I'm going to throw whatever at you like a cup of hot tea, right? There is this ache, there is this pain, and there is this centeredness to me that comes from wellness. And with Mita's work, as a therapist, she works with creative clients, which I think a lot of you are going to appreciate what she has to say. But also she writes a lot of wellness columns for the Eastern Eye, and then she reviews books that are around wellness and women's voices. And it's the same thing. She also works with survivors of domestic violence. And there is a lot of groundedness. Like when I see her posts, she doesn't carry the weight of pain. And it's something as writers we need to know. Just because we address dark things, we don't have to become the darkness. It's not a job. As an Ayurveda coach, that's something my mentors have always taught me. You work with the patient, you work with the client, but learn to leave the pain there, because that's when you're going to be a better healer, better writer. And I noticed that a lot with Mita's work, that she does that really well. There'll be a belly dancing video after she's worked with a client, and it's not because it's a reflection of what she's doing. She's able to separate those lives, and as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, it's incredible how she does that. So with that, Priya, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is it that you do, and how has wellness been a part of your writing life, and has it helped you, or if it hasn't?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Priya. I thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Sweta. That was such a lovely introduction. So yes, I write South Asian, Carrie Bradshaw inspired, probably a little bit more subdued than the stuff that she's maybe written about, but around dating and relationships, women's issues. I'm honored to work alongside Mita with the newspaper. Along with that, I do blogging, I do some other writing stuff, and I have a day job as well. So I balance both. I work in event marketing, I promote events for nurses. So it's been really rewarding in the pandemic just to give back to the nursing community, just as well as being a writer. So when you talk about how important wellness is, it's coming back to your question, it's very important. And like you say, you write about these things, breakups and stuff, but it does come from your experience, rather than saying, I hate you, you broke my heart, so the world. And it's very important. You have to, your mind has to be in a place where you can sort of focus on not what I want to say, but something that's going to help others with their own well-being as well. So if I'm writing about a breakup, I'm not just writing it, I'm writing it for myself, but I also want somebody else that might be in a bad place that needs to maybe focus on their well-being, I want it to help them as well. And I think that's really important in whatever you write.
I really appreciate that, Priya. And Mita, I'm sure you've read Priya's columns as well. And one of your last columns about pandemic and breakup and how people handle that, I think it resonated. I am married, and yet it resonated so deeply with me because it was so human. It was so human. And again, because you are aware of your emotions. And folks, wellness for a lot of people means pumping 200 pounds. That is an aspect. That's just physical. There's mental and emotional wellness. We are speaking to all three aspects, and financial wellness is something else we'll touch upon as well, because you really don't have to be broken to be a writer. But that was the aspect I really appreciated. Mita, I'm not sure if you've heard of this quote, but this broke my heart the first time I heard it. I was so angry, but it resonated so deeply. They always say, right, when something touches you that deeply, it's touched a nerve because there's a truth that speaks to you. So I think Robert De Niro, at one of the I think Academy Awards, he said at the Academy Awards, the mind of a writer can be a truly terrifying thing. Isolated, neurotic, caffeine addled, crippled by procrastination, consumed by feelings of panic, self loathing, and soul crushing inadequacy. And that's on a good day. Years later, I'm reading this, I still get goosebumps and I get teary eyed because it feels so true. So, Mita, if you can tell us a little bit about, not lots about what is it that you do, but I also want to bring in your experiences, not just as a writer, but also as a therapist and as an acupuncturist, because I'm sure when your clients speak with you in the role of a therapist, or when they're getting the acupuncture sessions done, there is stress release there as well. And so if you can address like the mental health aspect and what's your experience been, so that would be amazing.
Sure. So thank you so much, Sweta, and thank you for having me on and for the lovely introduction. And it's so great to be here alongside Priya as well. So yeah, I'm a writer, for the Eastern Eye with Priya, but I'm also a mindfulness-based cognitive therapist and an acupuncturist. So I deal with people's physical and mental well-being as well. So when you read out that quote, and I'm nodding my head, so I see this all the time, and sometimes I feel those things as well, because it's not easy being a writer. It's not easy being more than just a writer, because many people who are writing are not just writing, they're doing lots of different jobs. You know, some people are parents, some you're in a relationship. There's so many things we have to juggle in our life. And I think boundaries are so important, in switching off, and our self-care is really, really important as well. And as writers, like you say, and from that quote, it can be very lonely, very solitary, because you are stuck in your head a lot, and you're almost having to transport yourself into that emotional scenario. And it's almost like if you're writing about a memory, or it might not be a memoir, but you have to empathize with your characters. And when you're writing, you have to feel that emotion. But then you also have to step out of that and come back into reality, where I think that's why mindfulness is so important, because it helps you to clear your mind and thoughts. And when you revisit sort of an old emotion or an old trauma, just stepping back using some kind of mindfulness technique can help you to come back into the present. Because often we can end up living in our heads, and especially with writing, you are living in your head a lot. I know we write from our heart as well, but we have to think as well. So it's getting that balance of head and heart, and not getting too stuck in our heads. And I keep going back to boundaries, because I think boundaries are so important, from your fictitious world, your writing world, to your real life. Because I know when I've written sort of fictitious stuff and revisited things in my childhood, it's almost like it feels like I've got stuck there, but part of me is also released and let something go. But you also have to then transition back to your present moment life, where I think mindfulness is very, very helpful. And again, with the acupuncture as well, that can help us to just release some of the tension and stress that we hold in our bodies. Because at the end of the day, you're a whole person. If you're not expressing your emotions, whether that's anger or frustration, then where does it go? It lodges somewhere in your body, either as a headache, a back pain, a knee pain. So acupuncture can just help to release some of that emotional stress that's got sort of stuck in the body as well. So there's just so much to speak about on this topic. It really is, yeah.
I love that. And I wish we were neighbors or at least lived in the same city, because I swear by acupuncture, and I would have been like that weekly client of yours who came in for a
I would
acupuncture
love
session.
I would love to see you weekly.
So I really appreciate that, Mita. And you said boundaries, and I'll open with you and then go on to Priya as well. Like, how do you practice boundaries? Because with you, Mita, it's the roles that you play in your family and even within your work life, and that's true for Priya as well, right? You write, but you also do XYZ, and they're all equally important careers. So do you like have a schedule in place or like some kind of discipline? And then the second part to that would be, how do you set up these emotional boundaries? Because a lot of people think about it, but the implementation aspect is where they might struggle.
Yeah, it's really important. And yeah, I do have quite, I wouldn't say rigid, but I have boundaries, I have structure, and I have routine, which helps me to manage my time, but also it allows me to switch between, say, if I'm working as a therapist, and then I'm then transitioning into my home life. I sort of work in separate rooms, or you go outside for a walk for 5-10 minutes. So the physical separation from one activity to another, one role to the other, is quite important, I find. And on an emotional level, I think it's a case of checking in with myself and how I'm feeling, because I know that my boundaries are being overstretched, or I'm not honoring them when I start to feel really exhausted or tired, or I'm not sleeping well. I have to go back to the drawing board and sort of take a stock of, what am I doing here? How is my routine? How's my structure? What am I saying yes to that I could be saying no to, so that I can then give that energy to myself? I know that sounds a bit selfish, but it's not, because you have to look after yourself, but also you need to check in with yourself regularly, to make sure that your boundaries are still intact, because it's very easy for them to slip. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I think self-care is radical, it's revolutionary. And when we heal ourselves, we heal our families, our communities. And so I really respect you for reiterating that, because, for women, especially when they're moms, there's this struggle of, I see that with my Ayurveda clients very often as well. But if you sat down for 20 minutes and took care of yourself, and even if you tweeted out in that moment, that's also writing. So we get into that, what is writing, but that itself could be self-care, or just sipping a little bit of coffee or some wine, and that's your me time, or just even sitting quietly. If it's raining outside, like just sitting in your chair for 5 minutes, if it gives you a breather, it's really not selfish, because very often people think self-care is that physical aspect of girlfriend hour time or spa time, and that's great, but the pandemic has taught us all of those things are not always going to be accessible. So find that self-care regime within. What about you, Priya? How do you separate your different many things that you do, and how do you work with boundaries, and what does your creative time look like?
Yeah, so I echo what Mita says about saying no, because in the pandemic, I used to be like, I say yes to everything. Somebody says, let's go for dinner, let's go for drinks, let's meet up, let's do this. I was like, yes, yes, yes. And then you get burnt out, but you don't realize it. It's only in the pandemic that I was like, actually, why was I like, and I was thinking about the friends that I miss in the pandemic, the friends that I haven't seen. There's friends that I want to see, but then there's the friends who are the pub friends, so friends I only see because you don't have anything else to do, so you go for a drink with them because you're bored. And it's like, I don't miss those people. So now it's like, and this sounds selfish, but I'm going to be better at saying no and setting those boundaries that actually, no, I don't want to drink 3 glasses of wine on a Wednesday every week. No, that's that's not what I want to do. That was just to like time pass. But I've actually found more solace in myself this year, and like self-care is really important. It's like setting those boundaries. I have a 9 to 5 job, and you know, I have to do that. I really enjoy my job, but there'll be a time, maybe sometimes at lunchtime, I'm like, or you know, I'll be thinking about something and I'll spend like 20 minutes just writing down my thoughts, or you know, and that's quite often that's a really good just self-care time, that in the middle of the day you know, maybe you're thinking about something, because as a writer and somebody who has a job and is juggling lots of different things, your mind is always everywhere, and I sleep so badly, and I think it is literally because I've got a million things going in my head, you know, the writing, the work, you know, everything else that's going on. So I think it's just very important to maybe prioritize. I think my schedule isn't as rigid, the work schedule is, but then if in the middle of the day I want to have a nap, I will have a nap, because in the pandemic it's okay, because you just work a little bit later, and that's okay, because if that makes you more productive or it's better for your mental health, then take that 20-minute nap. It's okay to have a nap. Or if you want a glass of wine at the end of the day, that's okay too. So I think it is setting those boundaries is, for me, saying no to things I perhaps would have said yes to that weren't as, it's not as if, you know, the importance of them, but it's about yourself and thinking about you. Where would you rather spend your time? And you know, coming back to my writing process, is I write when I feel like, usually I feel something, so I need to write it down. And I think, Sweta, you said to me once, you know, writing is, coming back to your earlier point, like writing a Facebook post. I'm sure when we met up once, you said that to me, you know, even if you write something every day, even if it's a tweet or a Facebook post, that's just really important. And like I set myself a reading challenge this year, because I used to devour books when I was younger. I loved it, but when work and writing got in the way, books just sort of, you know, we're just piling up. I was buying books, but I never read them, and now, you know, I've read 25 books this year now. So that's
Wow.
been yeah, some of them, you know, aren't like long books. They're books that are like, you know, there's this great book called How to Fail by Elizabeth Day, but it was like a very little book, but it was just like helps you just to like escape for a little while. And when you finish your work day, before you go and have your dinner, I'll sit and read for half an hour, and that's been so essential and so good for my own well-being. And I hope to keep that. I'll read another 25 books for the rest of the year. So it's I think boundaries and well-being just comes in so many different ways, and you've just got to work with what's right for you and what you feel in that time.
I love that. And I like how both of you are reminding us to not be rigid with the definition of boundaries, right? Priya, and there are a lot of people who are listening and who might be, might have a full-time job. Like I have a day job, and then the writing, and then the wellness company that I don't. And then there are people who are just full-time writers, and then there'll be people who have another profession just like Mita, and they are writers, right? Or multiple things. Like she is a mindfulness-based cognitive therapist. I hope I got that right, because I love the word. I'm like terminology. I was like, I butcher it half the time. As well as an acupuncturist, right? And having these boundaries in place, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, I think it also helps our relationships. I remember when I was working on my novel, Louisiana Catch, there were days when I was working on the antagonist, and all I wanted to do was take a shower. I was like, ew, I would never be friends with a guy like Jay. And then when I'm like writing this male protagonist, which women love, Rohan Brady, I was like, ooh, this guy sounds really sexy. And then you're in that world, and you need to know how to step out and not bring that baggage of this disturbing, I don't know, like really terrible antagonist and this and both of whom you've created, right? So we create this alternate world, this alternate reality, and sometimes that reality is way prettier than your daily life in that moment, some aspect of it. I might have been writing about somebody going for a run in Central Park at 3 in the afternoon on a weekday. I was like, I don't have that luxury. I'm at my job. Right. In that moment, I was like, oh, Ahana, you keep running, girl. I'll keep writing your thing. So it's that fun part, but then it's also the ugly aspects of like, then how do you not think every guy is that guy like Jay? And I think we all struggle with it and having those boundaries in place. And I love what you said, Mita, of stepping away for a walk. That often helps me too, because as writers, we are emotional people. You know, we creative professionals are emotional people, but it's just emotions help us, but they shouldn't become our crutches. And I like what you said, Priya, about the reading aspect, because for anyone who's listening in, to be a good writer, you've got to be an absolutely amazing reader.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, just because so many of these ideas also come from reading books. Uh, Not just the style of writing, not just the stories. Firstly, it's you realize there's someone else who creates an alternative world, and you know, there's their book. So it's okay. I can do that too. And B, you just learn so much, not just about cultures, about so much of the world. The chaos in the world, I think, would be so diminished if we all read more, because instead of being judgmental, we'd be inquisitive about cultures, cuisines, races. And but then again, from a very writing deep clinical perspective, it's just that you learn about different writing styles. If you're just doing what you do, how would you know about other things? Um, so you were saying something, Priya?
So, you know, I just wanted to say, I really agree with what you're saying there. You know, you were writing about somebody who you're not, but there's somebody who once said, like, write what you know. So so I've been working on a novel, so hopefully one day it'll get published.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. And I, you know, so quite a lot of, you know, it's about a woman in her 30s, heartbreak. That sounds like somebody I know. But I also, one day I had this like urge to write something completely different, just something completely out of my different. I wanted to write about a serial killer. And I was like, I
Wow.
have like, so I literally, I have my notebook and I just was like, right, I want to step out of my comfort zone, so I'm going to write a short story. So I wrote this like short story about a woman who murders her ex-boyfriend, but it was such, like you said, I felt like I needed to have a shower or something afterwards, because I was like, I would never do this. But then I'm writing out this woman stabbing her ex-boyfriend because he cheated on
Love
her.
it.
But it was such a release, and it was so, it completely got me out of my comfort zone. It was completely different, but I totally get the whole, I needed a shower afterwards because it was so weird, but like wonderful at the same time.
I absolutely love that. And I think that for me, that's where the meditation aspect of the wellness comes in, where I'm the writer, I'm not the writing. So I'm creating these things, and I'm a medium. And I think it's a privilege and a gift to be able to do that. But just because you wrote about the serial killer and that's not how you think, that's your creative mind. And I feel with the first novel, we write a lot about what we know. And then when you start to write more, like whether it's a short story or whatever have you, second book, you also start to explore the beyond, because we get curious, right? Because it goes back to your point of reading. You're reading and it's like, okay, this is what I know. I want to get a little bit braver. So the fact that you wrote about a woman stabbing her ex, or the fact that I wrote about a guy who catfishes women, doesn't mean we are into it. But it's like, and I think that's the wellness aspect that comes
Something
in.
to explore though, right? It's a
Right.
whole new world you want to explore, and that's in a way meditation. It's just like you're transporting yourself for, you know, however many hours you're writing, because I quite often write in the evening, so I'll do
Right.
my day job, I'll like chill, have my dinner, and then in the evening I'll be writing, and then but then the next thing I know it's like midnight and you've been writing for hours, and you've got your little snacks there, which I love. I need snacks when I write, but it's completely, it is like self-care and meditation, because you're forgetting the real world for a little while. And I think, you know, book 2 hopefully will be something completely different, and you're just going to be in a different world, hopefully.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Mita, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the meditations for me is just I need it not just to get away from the writing, but also to clear my mind so that creative flow. Because when your head's so full of everything that needs to happen, I find that I just don't have the headspace to get creative or write, because my head's just so full with everything else that needs to happen. So just doing meditation, actually, I find creativity starts to flow more. I get a lot of ideas, and you're like, oh, I want to write that down, but you're like, no, you've got to meditate, just park it. That's what I end up doing. But I really find it great for actually clearing my mind, for more creativity as well as the sort of, you know, coming out of the world and sort of separating, but more for the sort of creativity as well. I find it very useful.
That's brilliant. And I feel the same way. I use it to declutter my mind. And there's a lot of research that's proven that how meditation can help the creative juices flow. I remember when way back 20 million moons ago, when I was very young, I used to wonder if I meditated, will it take away my creativity? Because, you know, you grow up with the stereotype, like writers exist in this heightened state and you have to be emotional and you have to be broken and feel all of that. So I used to wonder, if I meditate, will I lose my jam? Like, will I lose my mojo? And I was so wrong. And I'm so glad I was wrong, because the more I meditate, the more centered I feel, the clearer my brain feels. And when I approach my writing, it's not with any ego or expectations. It's very much what the Bhagavad Gita says. You know, you show up daily and without any ego or attachment. So make it your practice. It's like showing up to the yoga mat. One day your body is different, the other day is different. Like one day you feel like, oh wow, I did a headstand. The other day it's like even child's pose feels difficult. And writing can feel that way. And I agree with both of you. Like meditation can just feel you more rooted and make you feel more present and accepting of your own creativity. Because, you know, some days are like 4,000 words, and some days it's like 4 glasses of wine and nothing has happened. So it can really go in either direction.
Yeah, and it's accepting that, you know, the fact that you can't be creative all the time, and not being so critical and self-judgmental about your work as well, because I think that's very common with writers as well. We're very self-critical, and a lot of us want that perfect sentence, that perfect paragraph. I'm a perfectionist, I'm not going to lie. I would never put anything out in the world if I didn't think it was perfect. But at the same time, you know, you need to not take a risk sometimes and not be so self-critical, because actually what you think isn't perfect, somebody might read and think that's actually amazing, but if you don't show it to anybody, they're not going to see it, are they? It's just you're sort of judging yourself, or, you know, you're striving for your own standards. So
I think that comes down to like imposter syndrome, doesn't it? You know, you doubt yourself, and I've like written stuff and it's like, oh well, I'm not sure if that's any good, but then somebody loves it and it's like, oh actually no, you can write, you know, you can relate to somebody. And for me, just having one person just say, do you know, I related to that is just, it's so rewarding, and it just makes me feel that what I'm doing is worth it. And imposter syndrome, however, is very real for so many people, I think.
I think it's a part of, and it goes back to the wholesome wellness aspect, right? Like you accept certain things. That's something that carry with you. It's like fear, right? Fear doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be something that gives you the motivation to do something better. But if fear cripples you, then it becomes a bad thing. So I feel like it's the same thing with imposter syndrome. If it helps you work harder, and work harder doesn't mean 20 hours a day. Like work harder is a better version in terms of, oh, what can I do to make my content something that I would want to sit and write, right? And I think the other big struggle with writers is this: how much content do I need to produce to be a writer? And I remember our conversation now, Priya, is about, you know, what makes somebody a writer, and like the pressures are self-imposed. Anyone on the outside who's buying your book or reading your column or retweeting your tweet doesn't go and see, oh, where did you get your MFA from? Did you get a PhD in comparative literature from Harvard? Like, no one cares. It's within the industry, the pressures that we put on ourselves of what makes someone a writer, what makes somebody a productive or whatever proficient writer. I personally feel even if you tweet, that makes you a writer. You write a Facebook post, that makes you a writer, and it gets the pressure off you. I will say, however, that write, and that's my daily practice, to each their own, write every day. And that tweet is writing. It's just because it's the muscles. Then they know, oh, every day we've got to do this. It's like Pavlov's dog, right? Oh, come, and I'm making this up, like come 10 a.m., I got to get the creative juices doing with my cup of tea or coffee. I'm hoping people are not drinking at 10 a.m., but again, no judgment here, right? It's the pandemic. Whatever it is that you do, just tweet it so your brain knows. It's like that muscle. It's like lifting weights. You do it and you see those, your biceps like really take shape. The same thing happens with your writing muscles.
Yeah, I think it keep practicing,
Yeah,
keep persevering, keep going, and I think you just improve, don't you? And I know that when I look at some of the things I've written, you know, some of my columns from 7 years ago to now, and you think, wow, that's come on a long way. So I think it's important to celebrate your progress and see how far you're going. You might not be where you quite want to be just yet, but it's always easy to forget that the progress that we've made on this journey, and writing is a journey. And the writer you are today, you might not be in 10 years' time, because things change, how you feel changes, your perspective changes, your experiences changes. So yeah, I just think it's one of those journeys where actually it's quite good, because you can just explore it. It doesn't have to be defined or in any specific way. Just see it as an adventure, just enjoy it, you know. So
oh, I love that. See it as an adventure. You just made it so much fun. And I think maybe we need to, as writers, take the profession seriously, but not be so intense about it, because we walk with the weight of the world on our shoulders when we're working on a project. And perfectionism is something that I've struggled with my entire life too, until I met my mentor. And it's come to a point where she's kicked our perfectionism to the curb, the entire group. So there is no way you can be a perfectionist and work. But then it's going back to your point, Mita. It's the more you practice, the better you get with it. And by better, I don't mean anything. By better, I mean the ease of writing. It's just, and when you reflect, of course, like our writing changes because we change, our life experiences change. But if we wait for that perfect product, and I've seen this happen to author friends where they worked on a book for 10 years because they kept working because they wanted it to be perfect. And then after 10 years, they couldn't relate to the book. So it's then starting a new project. So it's important to know that also, that when we change, and it's happened to me with one of the books, like I can't relate to the character. I'm like, oh, like you sound so strange. And I'm like, if I can't relate to it, how do I put the book outside? But I wrote that 10 years ago. I was in a very different place in life. I processed emotions and navigated life very differently compared to how I do it today. So my one suggestion would be, if you're working on something and you want to put it out there, do that, because you've put in all this work. And Priya, to your point, even if it touches one person's life, it's made an impact. And I say this, I'm not holding myself back. People, check out their tweets. Please do, because when I need centeredness, I will go to Mita's Twitter feed, because she shares a lot of stuff about mental health. And, Adam Grant wrote this piece for the New York Times about how we are all languishing. And he said something so beautiful about lack of mental health issues doesn't mean presence of good mental health. So the languishing aspect comes into it. You might not have anxiety or depression, but you don't feel like, I don't have, knock on any of those challenges, but I don't feel like myself the way I felt pre-pandemic, because it's almost like you're too scared to say I'm grateful for what I have. But I also miss rushing, like that rush of taking the subway, the rush of being things, everything feels very centered. So I will go to Mita's Twitter feed and look at like how she puts perspective on that. And when I'm like, oh, it's Friday night, I might be back in my yoga pants and Thai takeout, because that's the life these days. I'll go to Priya's feed, because, she makes it real about the aspects of humanity. And I think part of wellness is also being aware of what you're missing. It's okay to be grateful and be missing in the same breath.
I think
Priya,
I
you
read that
saying
article.
something?
Yeah, no, I
Oh,
think
you
I read
did?
that article, the language or languishing, or maybe somebody else wrote something very similar, but I remember languishing is something I read about, that like you're just existing at the moment. There's no like joy in, just much at the moment. You're just like getting through life. You're just getting through the days. In life isn't what it used to be, and it may never be actually, but we've got to just be grateful for what we have and just find the small joys in the moments. Like I find small joy in, the the Pringles and the glasses of wine that I have on a Friday evening. That's like my treat, and I really look forward to it, and that's okay to have that. And I think it's just, you've got to just find the joy in small moments, and that's, if that helps your well-being and that's self-care for you, then so be it. Take a bath, there's so many things that we can look for the beauty in.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry, Mita, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say, I agree with Priya on that. It doesn't matter what your little joy is, so if it's a bar of chocolate or don't beat yourself up, don't feel guilty or ashamed about it, because I think we are so unkind to ourselves sometimes as well, and beat ourselves up for eating some things. I mean, yeah, of course, we need to have a healthy, balanced lifestyle as well, but you know what, it's okay to have treats as well. And I think it's actually important as well, really essential to have the things that we love and not deprive ourselves of it.
And I think it's very confusing at this time since we're speaking to our writing community. Like a lot of people feel they haven't written in the last year. I mean, we barely survived.
That's me.
But that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We're surviving, and like I had nothing else to do, so I was like reading. They're like, "Oh, you read so much." I was like, "But I have nothing else to do, so I'm just going to read."
Yeah, but even in terms of writing, I remember somebody asking me, "When are you working on your novel?" I said, "I started, but then I stopped because I couldn't. When my current reality is so cruel, I just can't go into that space of creating an alternate reality." Having said that, I know friends who wrote novels, so it's okay wherever you are. It's okay. Find your take care of your mental health, because everything else that I'm not going to take that pressure. Oh, just because I said I'm going to work on a novel. Like, said to whom? Social media ether. It's great. It keeps me accountable. But at the same time, I'm also first going to take sure, I'm going to get to it. And now I feel like in the States, at least things are opening up more. So like I'm able to meet people in coffee shops. I can't do my day job, my writing commitments, my columns, and my consultations with clients in the same space. It feels too much. And in the past, at least, like I had separate spaces, and I would love to hear more from both of you about that. I had separate spaces. I had a space for writing specifically. So my brain knew, like really Pavlov's dog. When she shows up there, this is what we do. We do creative writing. Like my office was separate, my coaching space was separate. Right now, I live in a New York City apartment, so there are only so many chairs and arrangements that you can do, but it's a musical chair. I move chairs sometimes, and it doesn't feel the same for my creativity.
I think sorry Mita. I think going back to your earlier point of you're not who you were 10 years ago. I started writing my novel about 10 years ago, and then I was working on it here and there in lockdown, and then over the years, and then in lockdown I finished it, and then I was submitting it to agents, but then I got the rejections, but then I reworked it, and actually it is so much better. That you shouldn't be scared to put something out because it's not perfect. Sometimes you think it's perfect, right, but actually won't be. And now you spend time, I spent time on it, and I was actually, this is it took a long time, and like both of you have said, there was days of I just don't have time for this, I don't have the energy, I don't have the brain capacity to do this. But it's just taking like those slow steps, and just not being afraid to just put yourself out there. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add, Sweta, I hear you, what you were saying about your different spaces, but also, you know, some people have written books and got published in lockdown, and that's so amazing. I just don't
Yeah.
admire them. For me, you know, I did start a novel, and I've had several people ask me, well, haven't you finished your novel in lockdown? I'm like, oh my God, no, I've got children at home. I've
Mm,
got my mental health practice, which has gone massive. So I'm overwhelmed with
Amazing.
clients at the moment with mental health. So I really don't have the space for writing. So going back to your tip, I just do the odd tweet or a Facebook post. That's as much as writing I can do at the moment. I can't give my novel the attention it needs, probably not till maybe next year or even, you know, sometime after that. But that's okay. I'm okay with that because I'm not in a rush to, oh my God, I must get published by this age or this date, because I think that's the other thing we need to do is take that pressure off, because your time will come
Yes.
when it's meant to be. So it's just not my time right now, and I'm okay with that. I'm in no hurry to, you know, get something out there. I'll do it when it's ready. But at the moment, other things are priorities, and that's okay. So yeah.
that's a
And
really healthy attitude, I think, Mita. Like,
yeah.
you know, I've known you for a long time now, and I think it's really healthy just to think that way.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing that, because I know a lot of people are struggling. And that's why I was like, when, my clients or friends or colleagues, like, I didn't write last year, and I'm like, you survived. You should be just proud of yourself, like you survived. What a privilege it is. So many
Mm.
people didn't have that. And I hear you, Mita, like the novel writing takes you in a whole different space and energy. And if your work is, there's only 24 hours and this quota of energy that we have, and as a fellow healer, I know the amount of energy that goes into helping people. There's only that much bandwidth that you have to create another world. And I'm so glad you shared this, because it empowers other writers too. It's different for people who just write full time, right?
Mm.
I know a lot of people who wrote their books because they write full time, and it's amazing that they are in that space where they are able to do that. But this is for all three of us work, and we write and we manage a personal life. Some days something else will take priority, and be okay with it. And reiterating what both Mita and Priya have said, just a tweet is not just a tweet, it's your creative juices. You're building your community, you are connecting with, that's how we connected. And we've met in person, like I met with Mita and Priya, and we connected over Twitter. So my point
Mm.
being, you meet your people, you meet your tribe. You don't just meet your tribe because you've written a book. Writing is a very lonely profession. So
Very.
find your people, even before you think you want to get a book published. I also wanted to, I know because both of you are physically very active, and to me, it's a core part of my writing process. Can you speak a little bit about how, whatever form of workout it might be, and it might have changed during the pandemic, my Zumba classes are out the window, and my hip hop classes are out the window, and I'm really bummed because I refuse to wear a mask and do hip hop. I was like, I can't breathe in that. So one day, maybe next year, the year after, I might return to my dance studio. But like, it's just changed how I work out. But I know the days that I don't work out, it impacts my relationship with words. So can you both speak to that, like how the physical fitness aspect of wellness impacts your creativity?
Yeah, sure.
Priya, you want to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I like to start my day with a workout. I like to work out early because I feel like I have so much more energy, um, rather than working out later in the day when I feel sluggish and I'm just tired and my brain isn't there. Because I think when I work out in the morning, I just wake up and I just go and that's it and it's done. But then I just feel like I'm just set for the day, and I'm like my brain is more alert and I feel more alert, and I don't feel as like the days I don't work out. I haven't worked out today, but I know that I was like, I just need to go just move, just and working out can be anything. It's just moving, going for a walk in the middle of the day, and or do yoga. I'm a big yoga fan. I like hot yoga, and it just uplifts your mood. And I think there's people that don't understand that because they don't really exercise like that. But I think if there's just moving your body for like in any way, walk, swimming, yoga, a bike ride. It's so important for not only like your physical well-being, but your mental well-being.
Yeah. What about you, Mita? Thank you for that, Priya.
Yeah, I mean, like Priya, I do work out in the morning. I just find my energy levels are better and it sets me up for the day. So, but then if I've got a really early start and I still want to do a workout later, I will do it later in the day. So time-wise, I'm flexible. But for me, and I've actually written a column about this, which is out, I think, in a few weeks. It's
Nice.
about mood-based fitness. So I think it's going to be a thing. It's about checking in with your emotions and checking in with how you feel in this moment right now, and what does your body need. So it could be that you're feeling quite tired and exhausted, but your body needs to move. So you might just want to do some gentle stretching, some Pilates, some yoga, or if you're feeling a lot more energetic or you're feeling a bit frustrated, you've got things pent up, things have accumulated. I personally find going for a run or doing something a bit more energetic, like weights or going for a run outdoors, really kind of refreshes me, and it kind of refreshes my limbs. It gets everything moving. So I think mood-based fitness is a thing, and it's a really
I love
important.
that.
I've written a column on this as well. So I think it's a really important thing going forward. So it's not just about just moving and doing an exercise class for the sake of doing it, but checking in with actually how am I and what does my body need? What does my mind need right now? And then just taking those small steps to sort of really give your mind and body what they need. So that's what I've been working on throughout the pandemic, is really sort of tuning into how I feel and then adapting my exercise around that. And I found that's really working. It's a really easy thing to do as well.
Amita, will you please share that column once it's out? Because I think a lot of my clients will also really appreciate that. Because when someone comes and tells me, I don't like exercising, and I always tell them, then you're not in the right room.
Yeah.
Because just how good you feel after moving, and if it's mindful and it's, I love how you describe it, emotion based, right? Fitness.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
really in with the present moment, how you're feeling right now,
Right.
what does your body need right now? Is it a stretch? Is it a walk? Is it something more vigorous? So yeah.
Because some people get prescriptive. It's prescriptive with, that's the world we live in. We're prescriptive with what makes a writer? Somebody who publishes 2 books every 5 years. No, a tweet makes you a writer. If you're writing, makes you a writer. It's the same thing with, movement aspect. Much like Priya, like I'm a big yoga person, and it's part of I don't call yoga my workout because it's more of my mind practice. The yoga and the pranayama in the morning, but I will get like a cardio weight training, and I love weight training, much like you, Mita. Oh my God.
Me too.
It's funny, like how I feel. So
Yeah.
it's a good kind of sore, but I realize I'm not intentionally thinking about my writing then, but I always come back with ideas, especially after weight training and a walk. There's something about being in nature.
Yeah.
And again, it like just works on the creative juices. But the other aspect is also, as writers, especially I think with full-time writers, we are all on our machines all day, especially during the pandemic. There's no going to the pantry and getting a cup of tea or coffee with your colleagues, right? Like hovered over for the most part. And so a lot of writers physically like suffer with carpal tunnel or like neck issues and back issues. And I am so grateful that you both shared your practices, because I want to emphasize that movement is medicine. And if you hover over a laptop for 12 hours a day, it doesn't mean you'll get more writing done. You have to have those spaces and pockets in between where you stretch your body, move your body. And to both of your points, it's depending on what you need on any given day, but find some kind of movement, because it's also stress release, right? And it's also like the stress of creating the characters, the stress of what kind of reviews will I get, the stress of will the book get published, the stress of will anybody read my book, all of those stresses, they're sitting on our hips, on our neck, on our shoulders, and we are hovered over. And it's like the number of writers I know who have sleep issues, because they're also my clients, and they have neck issues, they have back issues. It's because we just, to your point, Meet, the 5 minutes of stretch will help release that stress. Because we get so prescriptive now. If I don't do 90 minutes, then it's not a workout. No. 10 minutes is any kind of movement. Like we don't need so many definitions.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's the case of small, any bit of movement is better than no movement, you know, and it really does. Even if it's just a brisk walk outside for 10 minutes, it can just refresh your thoughts, it keeps your legs moving. Just keep moving, you know, even if it's just for 10 minutes, even if it's just at your desk and you're rolling your shoulders like that and doing that with your neck, and that's still movement. And you know, like you say, we are hunched over our laptops and we do need to sort of be mindful of that and just check in with our posture and how we're doing. So yeah, even those little things can make a difference.
Right. And I feel like much like anything in life, space is very necessary. So, you know, like a challenge for, especially for people who live in apartments and have young kids during the pandemic has been there's been no space. Like you don't set up your home with the idea that everyone is going to working from there, right? Kids go to school or college, one person goes to work, or you have spaces set up for people to work from home. When you don't have that, and a lot of the issues is it's coming back to where we started, the boundaries, the lack of space. And very often writers believe like the closer they are to their project, the fewer breaks they take, the more productive they will be. And creativity and well-being go together. Like that space aspect, that boundary aspect is equally important when it comes to writing. Like take that break. If you don't remember it, set it up as an alarm clock. And I'm just making this up, like 3 p.m., move for 10 minutes. Because every time that you take a break, and Priya, like you said, you've been working on this novel. I'm sure when you took a break and you went back to it, the quality of writing changes tremendously because
Absolutely.
right, there's more
Absolutely.
positive headspace.
Yeah, and you read back things and it's like, actually, you know, I had some good advice from a lot of writers said the same thing, you know, just leave it for a month and then go back to it. And you know, going back, it's like, oh, actually, no, this isn't right. And yeah, so I think it's very, very important. And I took up boxing in, you know, going to Mita's mood. I can't remember the terminology, but it's like the mood exercise. Like I took up boxing, and like, you know, the beginning of the pandemic, it wasn't a great time, but that uplifted my mood so much. And it was a different kind of exercise. It's an exercise that I haven't done before, and I just felt differently, and it's just a mood uplifter. So exercise is so important.
I think, and Priya's just made a brilliant point there. I think our body and mind loves new challenges and new things. You know, when we get stuck in a rut, you know, we kind of, yeah, you know, we're just kind of just plodding along. But, you know, our body and mind actually create this adventure. I keep going back to adventure and exploration, you know, explore new things with your exercise, your writing, different styles. And it's all a journey, and you don't have to do everything in a certain way or at the same time. It's just, yeah, go with the flow more and just enjoy it. Yeah.
I think that's absolutely amazing because writer's block is another thing that we talk a lot about. And to me, writer's block happens when you don't add that space. So going back to both of your points about adventure and exploration, like if you're feeling stuck in your novel, tweet. If you're feeling stuck in your tweet, write an essay. You're feeling stuck in an essay, it's poem. And if you have mindfulness and meditation as part of your practice, you realize why you're feeling stuck. Like I'll share this, you know, I write in across all three genres, and my book A Piece of Peace comes out in a couple of months. And some of the essays I felt a little stuck, and the reason I felt stuck was I wasn't, and so I had to pause and meditate, and then Priya, to your point, at that distance, it was I wasn't ready to write that bit. So sometimes being stuck doesn't mean it's like a dull moment, not at all. Check in with yourself. Maybe your gut is telling you something. There are a lot of people who tell you, oh, write about everything. But you know what? Only you know what you're ready to reveal. Right? So, and this is like nonfiction. Very often fiction is it's partly autobiographical. And I'm not saying always, but there are parts of us that we leave in our books. So even with that, or with poetry, realize some things that I might not want to write through a personal essay, I might write a poem about it, because then there's a beautiful mask, or there's fiction, there's a mask. So I've addressed the issue, but I am not in the picture. So that would be my one suggestion about even writer's block, like trying to incorporate meditation into your writing will also let you know why you're feeling stuck in a certain project. Because when they say meditate on it, it really helps. And maybe it's really a block, you'll know that, and sometimes it's something that you don't need to deal with in the moment.
Yeah.
I think like Mita said, you know, everything comes at the right time. You know,
Mhm.
it will come, it will happen when it's meant to happen, when destiny says so. You know, everything will happen when it's meant to happen, and we can just help it along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Priya. But we still have to put the effort in. It's not going to that, but you know, it's just being kind to ourselves in the process, and just accepting some things that we cannot change, you know, and focusing on all the things that we can, and that's okay. And yeah, and I keep going back to just enjoy the process of writing. It doesn't have to be so serious. Just lighten it up, enjoy, have some fun with it. And it's the same with exercise, you know. None of us are Olympic, you know, athletes, and I'm probably never going to be a Nobel Prize winner either as an author, and that's okay. You know, just try your best and just keep going.
I get people messaging me saying, oh, you know, how do you get into writing? What do I do? Or if somebody writes a guest column for it, they'll be like, oh, you know, I'm not a very good writer, but I feel like it's like you say, just have fun with it and just write what you feel you want to write. That, you know, once you sit down, it will happen. You know, have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you feel strongly about something, just put it into words. Just write what's in your head.
I think a lot of people worry about the grammar, the spelling, judge. And I always say to them when they do these guest columns, don't worry, we'll sort out the editing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Right.
sometimes, you know, you get sentences with exclamation marks at the end of every single sentence. And like, you know, it's fine, but the content is so good. And I think it's very refreshing when you hear people's stories and their words, and you know it's written from the heart. You can just tell, can't you, when it's written from the heart.
I think that's, for a lot of people who are new to this world, they don't know the process. So they assume that you just have to show up with a perfect book without realizing there is help available at every corner. So for those of you who are tuning in, we are 1 minute out. Just know, to both Mita and Priya's point, there's proofreaders, there are editors, you know, there are copywriters, there are copy editors. So there are people who specialize in doing what they're good at doing. So you just write the story that you want to tell, and let nobody tell you what stories you should write, unless they're giving you like $2 million advance, and should that speak to you? But that doesn't happen very often. The one thing I did want to say was, like, because again, the yoga is a big part. Yoga off the mat is also a big factor in my writing process. Is the two words, abhyasa and vairagya, which is practice and detachment. So have fun with it, as both Mita said and Priya said, but also show up. Because if you don't show up, words won't write themselves. And don't be the judge of whether they're good or crappy. Just show up and practice, but be detached from what the end result would be. And that's when you start to have fun, because you're writing for the fun of it. So this was incredible. I had so much fun talking with both of you, Mita and Priya. You're like, your sensibilities are amazing. And I love how you do a million things, and yet you create space for your creativity and your well-being, because they're like, they complement each other. Any last parting words? That would be great.
I just want to say thank you to you both. It's been really lovely, and I adore both of you, adore both of your words, and everything you've said today has been really beautiful. And I hope whoever's listening gets something out of it as well, because I certainly have. So thank you so much.
I agree. Thank you, Mita, Sweta. You guys have been amazing. Like you know, I adore your books, Sweta. I love your columns, and I just everything that you stand for, Mita. You balance everything so well. I think you're both incredible women. You both inspire me so much, and I am so blessed to have you both in my life.
Oh, thank you, and we are too. I know.
And thank you to the festival for having us. Yes.
This was I was just leaving a message in our chat. So I feel the same way, and I feel like I learned so much from both of you every time we talk, meet, or I even read your posts, because as a writer, please be open to learning at every point. Like curiosity can really help you become a better writer. So thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Thank you for being with us. And I hope you got something away from this, and just know, keep having fun with writing and let nobody tell you what you should write about.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the festival for having us as well.
Yeah.